Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today, and much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We're zooming in and focusing in today on a great viewer question, and that is, how do you find freedom after abuse? How do I find freedom and feel like I can take my life back after I've encountered this abusive relationship? We have a number of different viewerships, sort of, I would say, the group of community who come to this channel, but really by and large, many of our viewers have experienced one form or another of abuse. Not only physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and all the very basically sundry forms of manipulation, control, and criticism, and that whole devaluing proposition that comes as a result of being abused, and then of course the trauma bond that ensues. So I think that's a fabulous question, so we're going to dive right into that. And I think that's very important because it'll touch on a lot of topics to help actually liberate you and set you free and help you to heal. But before we get started, I just want to give a super huge shout out to those of you who recently donated to the channel. It is awesome to hear from you. Thank you so much for your support. It's really, when viewers come together and help to contribute, it really does help to keep me inspired and help me to feel at least that I'm doing a good job by you all. So thank you so much. And absolutely positively, if you would like to participate in the channel, please do feel free to donate at the PayPal Donate Now button. If this channel has been a positive influence and resource, absolutely please do feel free to participate. So thank you so much. And yes, we have Scotland in the house, so super cool once again to hear from you. And what really touches on, especially when we look at the viewership, we're in so many different countries, which is a testament and a testimony to go, to help you to show that people everywhere have experienced abuse. And it's just, it's not just a thing of the past, or that you can oftentimes leave in the past, forget it, and just, let it go. It's not that easy. A lot of people might say, well, just get over it. Just time will heal all wounds. Don't worry about that anymore. Just find somebody new. Or don't keep reliving the past. Scars are character builders. There's all these different things, which, sometimes, a lot of people aren't really able to feel that because there's this sort of limitation. There's this personal blockage. There's this relationship blockage or difficulty or dysfunction that can ensue as an end product, a byproduct, or as a lingering and lasting effect after you have suffered abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, repeated physical abuse. All these things leave scars on the emotional body, which is your energy in motion. It is what's held and maintained within the neurophysiology, your muscle memory. And oftentimes, if these aren't faced squarely with and dealt with and sort of released from your system, they tend to stay recycled, re-looped, replayed, relived in the physical and emotional body. And so you carry this pain around with you. And some people, they try to repress and suppress it, forget it ever happened. Let me just put on a happy face. Oh, I should be so grateful. I will try to forget it. But yet, there's always a situation which then eventually it'll become bubbling to the surface and will rear its ugly head. The feeling of embarrassment, the chronic shame, the toxic shame, and especially the feeling of embarrassment, meaning that you can't work, it's something that you can't work out with the abusers, and a lot of people don't want to hear about it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. That's your personal business. Don't drag that into this relationship. Don't drag this into your schooling. Don't drag this into your church. Don't drag this into your workplace. It's kind of hard when that is very much a part of your fiber and of your being. It's very hard to separate yourself from yourself in this manner. It's very hard to say, leave this at the door when it's stored within your muscles, your muscle memory, as well as your conscious memory. A lot of people have ruminations and flashbacks. that go on for years, if not decades, after the abuse, especially if they have served to sort of repress, which means to push down the memories. A lot of people have repressed memories. They put a lot of psychological energy in trying to push these things down. This is known as denial. And trying to use sublimation, which means substitute outlets for this, which aren't really sort of an outlet of the very experience. And then suppression also is another psychological concept that people, where they're just trying to sort of deny how they feel in the very moment, and then they just try to sort of brisk it away or brush it away. Yet there's a reality, there's a truth that needs to be dealt with, and oftentimes people find themselves responsible for more than they can handle on their own. That's why we need to have forums, communities, therapy, coaching, people who actually understand this and who are on your side to help you to work it through. People who get it, people who understand what it is. And oftentimes it's these very situations that not everybody wants to hear about or deal with. Cut it out already. Why aren't you over this? Is a frequent thing. Why can't you be like so-and-so and just forget about it? There's all this sort of, stigmatizing or, not wanting to have anything to do with your true feelings, what you've been through. Not a lot of people either want to help you sort it out. They don't want to spend the time, the energy. They don't have the knowledge. They just aren't really good resources to assist you. And so really this becomes then a sense of being either lost or a sense of being stuck, of being blocked, of being inhibited, of having your life stunted, your growth stunted. You don't feel free. You don't feel liberated. You don't feel like life is yours for the taking. The world is not your oyster. The world is not your dish. The world is not the easy street. It constantly seems like a struggle. It seems like this is just, being toted around with you, like you've got a ball and chain, but the ball is 10-foot stories. It's like it becomes very obvious or glaringly obvious when people are towing this for a long period of time, because the weight does get heavier. It does become more burdensome. What used to work to push it down or denial or to perpetuate the abuse no longer is tolerable. The abuse oftentimes is at the very hands of the people with whom you would like to love, be in a connected relationship with, have a bond. These might be your caregivers, they might be your parents, your siblings, your spouse, your coworkers, your neighbor. All these. It can reach also multiple relationships where there's this abuse that is perpetuated, and people become so beaten down and just so broken down by it, but they adopt a defeatist, attitude, just a perpetual sour face, a perpetual sour disposition. The abuser has won. If you're still carrying around that feeling of victimhood, victimization, I have the short end of the stick. I can never liberate myself and be free. I can't really release that free will, that creativity, that passion, and release those negative self-limiting beliefs so that I can expand my horizons, so that I can broaden my world, so that I can go and feel like life is for the taking and my talents are that for pursuing. A lot of people are taught and felt and had that really sort of ground into them, really sort of rubbed in sideways, upside down, and inside out, that they will never amount to anything. And the anxiety is like a current day testimony where they then begin to carry on the abuse, that can be, kind of a self-abuse or self-sabotage, or feeling that you're not really the master of your destiny. You're not the master of your emotions. You are, in fact, powerless to these experiences. So that is a very sad and starry state of affairs when you aren't able to sort of rise up to greet your own life, when you're not able to rise up and find and create love for yourself. It's a very sad state of affairs when you can't really, know yourself free from fear, so that you feel okay, so that you feel safe, that you don't feel damaged. I'm damaged goods. I've got a chink in the armor. I've got a crack that won't mend. One of these things, I am undesirable. I'm not worth anything. No one would even pick me up at the 10-cent store. You know, um, just, they've been through that sort of Arctic emotional state for a long period of time, and things can look pretty bleak, and it can be hard to feel like you plant new seeds for new beginnings in this sort of emotionally frigid stance where people are in that freeze state. The fight or flight then becomes the freeze, where basically people are living in just a stifled life. They can't move right, they can't move left, they can't go up, they can't go down. They're in, a very, very tough rut. And oftentimes it's difficult to even feel something like freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, freedom of expressing my creative side, freedom to express a positive side without being fearful. There's always this tinge of hesitancy of, you won't love me if you find this out. Things will never change for me. I don't have what it takes. All these sort of assailing, sweeping statements which cut at the core of a person, oftentimes which will then promulgate and foster a very defeatist attitude. I will never amount to anything. My relationships will never be able to go anywhere. I don't have good luck. I don't have good fate. I'm not the master of my destiny. My life is always going to be the tough road. I will never find the good life. I will never make it on easy street. Well, this is oftentimes because you're repeating and rehearsing those same lines over and over. And unconsciously, people still stay focused on the abuser. They still stay focused on trying to protect themselves. So it's like they're constantly having this battle in their mind, even though they're going around their everyday activities, making their dinner, walking to their car, driving down the street, going to their workplace. It's like people might call it a monkey on the shoulder, the monster on a stick, whatever it is you want to call it. It's very, very real for a lot of people. And so to negate and have people say, well, time will heal this, that's true, but you're going to need, something else along with time. Good support system, understanding the cause has created this effect, being able to identify with a part of you that is untouched by the abuser, that is clear, pure, pristine, that has, in the now, that can then assist you and you can tap into to expand your life and live creatively. Creatively meaning proactively, meaning being able to open up the door and being able to broaden your life experiences, being able to go places, going to have relationships, and not feeling the tinge of emotional pain on a constant basis. A lot of people ask, peace and harmony, will I ever heal from this? Will I ever get over this? And, and this is also kind of a question that, begs that same issue is, will I ever be free? Will I, it's like an imprisoned sentence that you feel emotionally. Yet getting free is to understand that you have the key, that all the things that the abuser did not want you to see in yourself, you now must see in yourself. The good traits, the positivity, the lovableness, the unconditioned love. And when a lot of people say this, oh no, peace and harmony, that is strictly forbidden. These are forbidden states. I'm not allowed to just live freely. I always have to second guess myself. There's something that I've done wrong. I'm always blaming myself. This sort of self-doubting on a constant basis. It's important to let that go, and more importantly, let the eyes of the abuser go. The mean looks, the harsh statements, the sneers, the growls, the way that they made you feel. Those are all emotional states which are buried or repressed deep within, which keep you feeling stifled, keep you feeling small, feeling limited. Like, life is, you've got a life, but it's just got a big bite taken out of it, like the Apple logo. I've, once bitten, twice shy. I just can't seem to be comfortable in the way that I relate to people. I'm very shy, or I feel, like a recluse, or I feel like I've got so much social anxiety. If anyone, has an opinion about me, I don't know how to handle it. So part of being free is to know how to not only release the good within yourself, but to be able to draw a discipline from that, and to know and be in that higher mind. In other words, the role of metacognition, the ability to think about what you're thinking about and then reframing. These are two very important psychological components, as well as exercises that you have as part of you, as being a human being. A part of you meaning an ability, a place to check in with and understand that they work, so that you can start using these and, doing this sort of review of your current situation, and then moving forward, so that you are freed, so that you are living more proactively and more comfortably in a more homeostatic way, where you're not always afraid, you're not always seeing the eyes of the abuser, hearing the voice of that abuser, the ruminating thoughts, the images that flash in your mind. A lot of people, especially if they've been in relationships with psychopaths, they might have recurring dreams, their body is still so shaken up that they continue then to try to release it. One important thing to getting free is to understand that you have to release the repression and to stop the act of repressing. In other words, to stop living in denial, to get to the sordid truth, no matter how painful it is. The truth being understanding and being able to discuss with somebody else or others, and through a support group, through a forum, through one-on-one counseling, through group support. There has to be a letting out of these bottled up emotions, because otherwise they will continue to trickle to the surface and taint and oftentimes ruin good situations, good jobs, good relationships, good days, good weeks, good years. And then all of a sudden, you find that you're in a fit of tears, that you're angry, you're acting rash, you're out of control. Enough is enough. I'm sick of trying to control this. Oftentimes, what has been repressed needs to be examined. What has been repressed needs to be examined. What you put under the bed, swept under the rug, swept under the car, put in the glove box, put in the old shoe box, put in the old wallet, whatever it is, your trap door, that stuff that you have hidden is what's keeping you feeling that you're not free. It's making you feel that you've still got something that is just still kind of snagging on you, that's just crying out for your attention, but you continue to try to, close a deaf ear, turn a blind eye to. And it's those repressed experiences. In other words, because they were too painful, if they were in your younger years, to be dealt with. In other words, either if they would just overwhelm you personally, if you were to really understand and how either abused you were, or how fearful you were made to feel, or how helpless the situation was. You couldn't go through your daily life feeling that helpless, feeling that meek, feeling that weak. So you had to put on a happy face, or keep your shoulder to the wind, or whatever it is you had to do to get through the day. Oftentimes that was denial, denying the truth, denying having your feelings heard, denying having representation in your household, denying having representation in your relationship, wherever it is that you have encountered this. Perhaps there was no one else who could really see things from an objective standpoint and go, oh no, you should not put up with that. That is intolerable. You're in a state of being abused, emotionally abused, taken advantage of. This is unfair, unjust. We need an intervention. So the abuse then oftentimes, because especially in an immature mind, a young mind, a new a new life, perhaps where you had set in a new marriage or a new job, and you didn't know A from B, Adam from Eve. you just kind of were going with the flow, and you were doing all that you could to your darndest. You were making the best decisions. You were making the right decisions in the name of love, in in the name of progress, whatever it is, you had allowed that relationship to continue. And then you found that, what was denying, what you were in denial of, eventually had to be faced. You were mature enough, you had enough life experience. You said, you know what? Now I'm really realizing that this is not funny anymore. This can't go on this way anymore. It's not fun to yell. Before it might have been like, oh, look how strong I am, or look how loud I am, or whatever it is, look how right I am. It's not funny anymore. I'm no longer a teenager in my young 20s. It's time to grow up. It's time to mature. It's time to stop this denial. And maybe that denial had manifest in substance abuse, gambling addiction, other addictions, obsessive compulsive behavior to try to protect you and give you some structure. The other addictions that are out there, sex addiction, codependency, enabling, being part of an enabler relationship where you're maybe married to an alcoholic, and so you have to do a whole lot of denial. At some point, eventually things will get bad, and they will get worse. And sometimes they need to get worse before they'll get better and basically hit what you call rock bottom, where denial no longer works. Pushing it down, ignoring, laughing at it, ha ha, isn't that funny? You just threw up. Ha ha ha, wasn't that funny? You just lost the mortgage. You ha ha ha, you just gambled away your retirement. There's eventually, some rock bottom or some, square look in the face that says, you know what, this isn't going to work anymore. I'm out of here. I'm going to pack my bags, hit the street, grab me a Greyhound, because the life has got to be an open road. It's got to be anywhere but here. So a lot of people then, begin to then make the rash decisions or cut off all ties, cut off all correspondence. They never want to work again. They never want to date again. They don't think that they have any talents. They just want to, live and just with their head in the sand, like an ostrich mode, but that, also you'll hit a rock bottom there. We're going, you know what? Maybe I do have some potential. Maybe life does have some potential. It seems that there are a lot of neat people doing a lot of neat things. Maybe life ain't so bad after all. Maybe I should work on the solution and stop being a problem to myself. Because what ends up, going, I call it like the passing of the baton. The abuser passes the baton to you and says, okay, good luck. Why don't you go abuse yourself now? And then people then perpetuate this legacy through self-mutilation, self-sabotage, low self-esteem. They don't, have friends. They don't have support groups. They don't have knowledge. They don't have real world experience. And so they become basically weak by default. They've become deconditioned emotionally. They don't feel that they are then programmed for success, or I'm not conditioned mentally to be able to handle this. I'm not strong enough. And they never want to look within and then validate that truth single-handedly. It takes a lot of gumption, a lot of courage to take that up single-handedly and to say, you know what, I am worthy. You know what, I am a good person. You know what, I do have a lot of good qualities. They were just marred. They were hurt. They were scarred. I could no longer even recognize this in myself because I've been surrounded by so many abusive people, or that got me, connected with all the wrong people, all the wrong situations, all the wrong places, all the wrong jobs, all the wrong relationships, and it becomes like you just, you got to start anew again and sweep all that bad influence away for good, not under the rug, not behind the couch, not in the glove box, but to like get it out and stop hiding it from yourself and stop hiding it from, what you need to deal with. And the greatest courage is looking at it square in the eye and having, facing your fears. In other words, oftentimes it's not the fear of being unloved, it's the fear of being loved that is more the fear. So oftentimes people also mistake their fears as well. So it's difficult to get free and feel liberated and feel like they can just exhale, and breathe it all out and say, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with the denial. I'm done with the repression. I'm done feeling less than. But sometimes it can happen that quickly through, many years of work. Eventually it all congeals and gels together and goes, you know what? Now I know. Now I got it. Okay, something finally just clicked into place, and now I understand. And you feel liberated. You're free from the past. You're free from the condemnation or the sentence of the abuser. That really happens and needs to get inspired when you stop seeing life through the eyes of the abuser. People have so many questions for the abuser. Why me? Why didn't you stop? Why did you let it go on so long? Why did you, and they're implicating the abuser as part of their healing. And yes, sometimes you do need to make amends, but oftentimes it's difficult to make amends with someone who doesn't feel that they've done anything wrong. It's difficult to make amends with someone who doesn't take responsibility, who thinks it's not their place. It's difficult to make amends and have some sort of closure with someone who feels that you had it coming. This is what we did. I don't feel sorry. They don't have empathy. They don't get it. They're not wanting to acknowledge and validate their part in the abuse. They don't want to admit that they were too harsh. They don't want to admit that they were neglectful. They don't want to admit that they failed you. They don't want to admit that they had a mental disorder. They don't want to admit that they had a drinking problem. They don't want to admit that they had a money problem. And so it's very difficult if you're implicating the very people who were at the hands of the abuse, that you're implicating them for closure. One important thing you need to understand about a narcissist, a manipulator, a controller, they don't like to be challenged. They don't like to be told that they're wrong. They don't like to take responsibility. They don't like to think that there was something that they could have done differently. They don't see options and choices for themselves in that manner. For them, they're very rigid. It's my way or the highway. What don't you understand about that? I am the controller. What don't you get about that is their viewpoint. So you've got a real clash of viewpoints. You've got a real clash of your needs and their needs. So your needs are not going to be met. There's not going to be a fit. The puzzle piece ain't going to fit together. There's no hook and eye closure between the two of you guys. It's not going to happen. So for people who think, oh, I'll wait and then they'll soften up, maybe they'll get it, maybe time they'll mature. And so they keep, kind of like dangle this person on a string. Oh, they'll change, as soon as they hit 20. They'll change as soon as they hit 30, Maybe they'll change by their next birthday. They make all these excuses. What you're doing is you're still enabling the abuser to keep an open door. Yup, come in and get me. Come in and, and then you open yourself up for more abuse. So it's very important for you to let go of the abuser and stop sort of factoring them into your closure. Stop factoring them into apologizing. All I need to hear is an I'm sorry. All I need to hear, if you, are banking on that, you can be waiting a very long time. And that's not fair to you. It's not fair to waste decades of your life. Decades. You don't, there isn't that much time. Life is too short. And when you really get that, that'll also help you to realize that it's time that the change has to begin with you. You're going to be the common denominator in all these relationships. So sometimes it's important to eat some humble pie and say, the one who is the master of my emotions is me. And like Abraham Lincoln says, I'm only as happy as I make my own mind up to be. I mean, there's all sorts of testimonies. I mean, read about Frankel, the meaning of, what is his book? He was a Holocaust survivor, and he talks about, how he, Frankel, Viktor Frankl, I think was his name, and he talks about how he mentally survived the concentration camps. It's Man's Search for Meaning was his book, and very influential when you really think about all that he suffered and how did he endure. Success leaves clues. So if you look at the horrific abuse that this individual went through, they were to find meaning in every single day and meaning in their own life. So, his life didn't mean anything to his captors, to his abusers. That's the ultimate devaluation. Yet he was able to find it in his heart, the truth, that he has to have meaning for himself in his life. And that's what helped him to carry on. And to have that faith, as small as a mustard seed, whatever it is within, to have that faith. And so you have to realize that you have to begin to pull the strings within and have that discipline to understand, well, you know what, maybe some closure is going to have to come with me. Maybe some, working things out and understanding has to come from within. It's going to be, happiness is going to have to be an inside job versus relying on all of those things outside of me. And looking at this little by little in the way that makes sense for you will help you to do this with grace. And, to really sort of move peacefully, to let down or to let go of that heaviness and that muscle memory where you're always sort of factoring in this person as a causative to where you are today. In other words, because of them, because of this, because of that, begin to live more in the present moment and venture to do that. It can oftentimes be a big leap of faith for people to do that and then to let go of that feeling, in that feeling that was given at the hands of those people, and then realize that, maybe some of that closure, maybe of that communication has to be done with them, and I have to let them go. But furthermore, I have to be able to trust in myself to be a good judge of people who are actually the opposite, who are loving, caring, considerate, patient, whatever it is, the qualities with those that include empathy around those people who can, be more fulfilling and healthier, harmonious relationships beyond that type of relationship. And then begin to kind of wonder, have that role of metacognition to check, catch yourself. Am I still implicating them where they're not able to really resolve with me? Am I implicating them as part of my healing when they're not capable? And if that's the case, then maybe I have to let them off the hook for this. And so knowing that to be the case, how can I come to peace with what has occurred and know that I have the responsibility to develop the trust within myself and to understand that role of metacognition, which is able to catch myself when I slide back or I find myself feeling depressed for too long or anxious for too long. Stop. I'm not dragging that past into the present. I'm not going to let it ruin this present moment moving forward. And doing that with a sort of a mental exercise. Doing that which is called metacognition, the ability to think about what you're thinking about, to open up that awareness, to become more aware. And also how it feels in the body, and also how, and when you become anxious, is it really, worth it becoming anxious?